One, two, three, 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 6, 1, 2, 6.
And welcome back to
Welcome
episode.
back.
Which episode is it, Rajko?
I don't know. 4?
And he scores. Episode 4. It's surreal to think we already recorded 4 different sessions, including the demo. But officially, this is going to be episode 4. And my name is Nikola, and this is my brother.
I'm Rajko.
Yep.
I
And
mean, how? They already know that. Come on. We already got 4 episodes. They should know that.
what if somebody finds this episode first?
I was joking.
This has been our communication for the last 2 to 3 weeks. Me not catching up fast enough. It's been a struggle. I'm not gonna
and
lie.
having to deal with my mood swings.
Yeah, no, it is what it is. We're pushing through it. It's almost like we're going through a little period from our childhood when the 6-year gap started to show a lot.
Oh yeah. It's kind of like I was always saying that that's like the worst difference that can be, right? Like you're that little, like 2, 3 years when you start, walking, talking, and exploring world. And I'm already like prime school, third grade. I'm like, I have my own friends, blah blah blah. And then you start going to school, getting in puberty, and everything like changes up. I get out of puberty, you get in, and then that's like total disaster. And yeah, by the time you were out of puberty, uh, it's starting to mend a little bit, but then you left. So
Yeah, it was a strange time growing up, definitely, and a lot of it had such an impact on the development for both of us. But hey, we're doing this now,
right.
so we're mending our our childhood years for sure.
Yeah.
Today we have a couple of topics we want to talk about, and we want to set a structure for future episodes where we're going to cover 3 different segments that are going to sometimes touch on parenthood, sometimes they won't, but we think it's interesting conversations that we can talk about um, episode to episode. And then obviously we're going to have our fatherly talks as well. And today's story from our childhood that we're gonna start the podcast with. I think it would be interesting to talk about um, the time where I decided that it's a great idea to take my brother for a walk. Um, it was
just just for a short walk, just nothing
yeah.
special.
Um, so Jeannie is 4 or 5 year old me. I believe I was 4 or 5.
I don't know, I think something like that.
Yeah. Um, so I just became self-aware, mind you. um my genius little brain wanted to go for a walk with my big brother, and it's a really normal thing in Serbia, at least back in the day, that your kids would be outside playing with other neighbor kids, or you could go to the park on your own. It was just a very normal thing. It was pretty safe. So me and my brother started going for a walk, and street by street, I made probably uh, more and more compelling arguments how to go further away from the house. And my big brother, being the big brother that wanted to probably explore, he just went on board with it. And we ended up going for a walk
I'll
that
just,
was,
I'll just, I'll just like while you're talking, I'll just explore and trying to see and on maps and count how many kilometers that was.
yeah. Uh, just to put it in perspective for you guys, for children, like an adult can take that walk in, I'd say, like 45 minutes. So 2 children probably needed like
What?
two.
No, that walk. Like, did we go up on the fortress or not? We were
Yes, we
just across the bridge.
no, we went up to the fortress, and then
Are you sure? I don't remember though.
from what I was told by
If we if we went up to the fortress, that walk is at least 2 hours and 30 minutes walk for a grown up.
really,
Yep.
well, maybe
How
maybe it
how
was longer. Um, but
I
let's
don't
just
know.
put yeah,
I
let's
don't
just put it
remember.
this way. We were missing for more than half a day. So our mother was having a mental breakdown probably, and
Not
we
probably. She had a meltdown.
yeah, but we always talk about the scene where so we went over one bridge and then we went across to the other side uh, from the fortress, and then we came back on another bridge, which was technically a train bridge that had a uh, it had like a side railing or a sidewalk that was attached to the bridge, but it was very shaky. It was very unstable. So we went across, or I went across, and then I was like, "Oh, where's my brother?" So I turned around, and he's there at the bridge, terrified because he's more aware of what's going on, and he's like, he probably was thinking, he looked down. He's like, I can fall into this river and I can drown. But me being little me, 4 or 5 years old, I don't care. I just skipped across the bridge and I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm on the other side of the bridge. That was probably what was going through my
Yeah.
head. But to wrap it up, we finally got home. Uh, we walk in. Our mother is having, our dad is giving her like sugar water because she was probably gonna fall unconscious. Did they already call the cops or they were going to call the cops?
You went to the cops and then come back and
Oh, because not enough time passed by. Now I
yeah, and
remember.
then
She told
she
me.
went
Yeah,
back again.
yeah, yeah. So they told her like to file for like missing for a missing person needs to 24 hours need to pass, I think. So she said like she went it twice and then she was like
So
all
it's
stressed
seven
out.
kilometers. So that's like 7 kilometers walk.
So that's what, like 6 miles, 5 miles.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
6. No, it's 4.5. Yeah, somewhere around 4.5 miles.
Jesus. But yeah, that's a fun story from our childhood, and needless to say, I think our parents were pretty stressed out. So
Yeah, and I remember when we came back, we were just dad was like, he was not that stressed because I don't know. I mean, that's his I would say character, and he would not like get too much stress in these situations. But he was alone. Mom was not there, and we're getting in and sitting and eating soup, and then mom comes and she's like she totally like I don't know apart in pieces and starts crying and everything. And she was around walking, looking for us and stuff. Just crazy.
yeah, now thinking about it, it's a funny time to us, but I can't even imagine being a parent now and having
Yeah,
having my child just just walk away and not show up for half a day. I would probably like freak the fuck out more than mom did, but
yeah.
it's
I
just
don't
so
know.
crazy when you
It's
put it into
funny now, yeah.
perspective. Yeah, when you put it in
So
perspective.
if we take that in an account, maybe it was good that we didn't hang out more. Who knows what what would come to your minds again?
Yeah, it would. Uh, it's fun times, and then reminds me of another story that I'm gonna talk about next time about how our dad was so relaxed about these things because he had maybe too much confidence in our ability to go through these moments. But we'll touch
But
on that another time.
yeah, but yeah, write it down. I have something to say about it. I was just
Yeah.
talking with someone about it today, so
Yeah, but speaking of that, the first segment we want to cover is going to be health, and today we wanted to talk about our inner child. So this is something that Rajko and I briefly touched on because we did want to kind of like save it for the podcast and just go a little more in depth of
Can
why.
I just, yeah,
Go
you
ahead.
go.
I wanted to say we just want to go over why it's important to acknowledge that your inner child is there and why it can help you get better.
So yeah, there's a like a psychologist terminology that's, uh one part of it. So there's so many different approaches to it and so many different techniques and stuff like that. So people who are much more knowledgeable about it, uh they would be probably better persons to talk about it. But when I was going and seeing my therapist, actually it's, I don't know how you call it in English, but yeah. And we would always talk about that there's an inner you and an inner grown up and then the inner child. So all three of them are interacting between each other, and then you have the inner grown up who's there to set boundaries and kind of set the tone and be the one who's making it that everything is right. And then you have the inner child who's there and needs support, love, and needs to be loved. So this part of you is sometimes, and as I read through different stuff, often a part that's actually causing a lot of problems to ourselves unconsciously.
Yeah, and to further touch on that is that basically the way that you felt as a child at these memories that kind of get locked away when you go through puberty and early adulthood, uh, your mind just subconsciously blocks those emotions, and then sometimes, I feel like especially in men, we have these moments where we bottle things up, and then we explode, and then that inner child comes out where it's just broken. It's suffering
It's not
because of
it's not the
something.
case. It's not the case in every person,
Yeah.
not every person has that inner child that's been suffering. So, for example, I know that I have, and I have a huge issue with dealing with sometimes, my impulses, my cravings, my needs. So, oftentimes I find myself like, for example, today, I thought about ice cream and I forgot to buy it in Walmart. I had to go after dinner to buy ice cream. So I had to go. And those are things that are just freaking me out. And maybe that's the reason why I was so mad today, because I was just not being in control of myself. And that's when the child pops up.
Yeah, it's the little things that uh, you think that are much less serious than they actually are, in terms of things like, oh, I'm craving this or I'm craving that, or I want my feelings to be validated. Sometimes it's your inner child trying to heal from a traumatic event that happened 10 or 15 or 20 years ago, but something that happened to you today resurface that memory or resurface that feeling of you being a baby and crying and going through this motion and all these emotions that are triggering something in you. And the reason why Raiko says that there's the inner adult, inner me, inner child, is that you have to learn how to communicate to yourself and to understand yourself, to heal not just your inner child, but to heal all three parts of you.
Well, it's just that's a whole that's what makes you whole, and it's just in every endeavor, in every situation, especially when you're dealing with your children, you have to first know that you got to understand yourself. And children are very, very good at reading people and reading how they feel and how they communicate. And they know that if something is not right, they will know it. So, and if you can't pretty much control and communicate in yourself properly, it's a huge probability that you're not going to be able to communicate with your child properly either, or with outer world whatsoever.
Yeah, and I catch myself often with Constantine, who is my stepson. I catch myself in certain points where I would get upset over something that it might Constantine might have triggered it in some way, but he didn't do anything wrong. It's
Yeah.
just me being triggered about something that
How you
I was not satisfied as a child, right? That my father maybe treated me in a way that I didn't like, or my father didn't respect me the way that I would have liked. Not in a way that I want to be right, or I wanted to be, you know, uh, I wanted to make my statement known. I just wanted to be, I think, in that moment as a
listen to.
child, listened to, and I wanted to be
Yeah.
respected as another human being.
It,
Because a
yeah.
lot of times parents will have this moment of like, but why? Or they will be upset over something, and then the adult will say, because I said so. And that's such a garbage reason when you think about it. Uh,
Yeah.
there's very small niche cases where you can say because I said so, because there's so
Yeah.
much behind
Exactly.
something.
Yeah.
But in most cases, when you say, but that's because it's because I said so, it's you're not trying hard enough to explain something to your child, or not trying hard enough to approach the situation to come to the child's level of understanding.
Yeah. And then it leads to another topic that we're actually think we were thinking about on talking, and that's like parenting burnout, and situations where parents actually find themselves in, which is going to be a nice topic for the next time. So
Yeah, we're gonna definitely talk about that. It's a huge issue, and it's going to be something that it's probably going to be beneficial for everybody to understand why it's happening, and how is it being dealt with by a specific country. Now, moving on, we're gonna talk about business a little bit, and in this case, there is a huge boom in India. And this was started because Tim Cook, which is the CEO of Apple, they opened their first physical store in India, and there's so many reasons why um, India is so hot on the market right now. And the main thing that's triggering this is that they're expected to uh, overtake China's population next week. Now we're recording this in May, so second week of May, they will be overtaking population wise China. Next to that, they have the highest number of working class people, meaning that they're eligible to work, they're old enough to work, right? And then there is a huge opportunity for cheap labor. So India is going to be booming. What do you think about that, Raiko?
I'm not entirely sure how a country like India can um, compete with China. So for me to compete in that huge market, you have to have a certain infrastructure, certain system, government, uh, certain resources, and stuff like that. So I'm not quite aware of where India is standing at, but by the things we kind of know, I don't think that they're uh, in a good position. But now, uh, if you are talking about that cheap labor that they have, unfortunately, we have to call it like that. It's obviously a very lucrative uh, thing for any capitalist to go there and exploit that resource. So I can see, certain, I would say, funds and projects and stuff like that being made to help India grow and develop uh, these things so they can actually contribute more on that labor market. But yeah, it will be interesting to see. I mean, there's a lot of things going around geopolitically, and I believe that it's going to be a very intense race for the uh, first economy of the world.
Yeah, and the reason why this whole discussion was triggered by the media is because India has sought to sign free trade deals to boost the industrial sector and lift exports, and has recently struck agreements with Australia, Mauritius, the UAE, and it is also negotiating deals with the EU, the UK, and Canada, which is going to be huge going forward. So it's definitely something to keep an eye out because. Things that happen to these countries is they start having such an influx of money that they're gonna start improving a lot of segments in their country. Now the last segment we're gonna talk about before we go into our outro section is going to be a little bit about gaming, and this is another AI theme that we're going to cover. And
Yeah.
this is super interesting
AI
because
everywhere.
yeah, and it is super interesting. In short, there is a moderator, uh, or modder is what they call them. I apologize. In the gaming community that took a certain game, used ChatGPT and some other software that allowed that modder to dynamically change the game to extreme heights. So essentially, you will have an NPC, and it's for somebody that doesn't know what that means. It's a non-player character. So those are all the characters that you interact with as the player. So all these NPCs are going to have dialogue and answers to your questions, right?
But is it gonna change the gameplay?
It will change the gameplay in a way where you can role play a lot more, right? So you can be like a simple example. Uh, you're resting or role playing that you're a hunter, and you ask your companion, "Hey, can you tell me a bit about your time when you were in battles many years ago?" Right, and then you can have like
So
a
it will not change the gameplay. Gameplay, it will change like a store like narrative, but it's not gonna change like I have
Are
like
you talking about
people.
battle? Like you're talking about
No, I'm talking
strictly.
about quests and stuff like that. It's what are you gonna be doing? Like, I mean, it's for me, it sounds like something that's just gonna like be interesting to certain people.
Maybe,
Like
maybe,
it's
but
gonna
there
be
is.
interesting to, but there are other potentials that like, if they can make quests kind of, you know, being generated like that, so
Yeah,
you have a different quest with a certain person every time you go, that can be very, very interesting. That can open up the world so much.
for sure. And for people that don't know, the ARPG genre, which is action role playing games, is huge in making open worlds where you can explore. You make certain decisions. Those decisions affect the next quest or next part of the game in some way. But with the introduction of AI, it's probably going to be huge. It's going to change the industry so much. So yeah, we're probably in this other segment that we're going to be holding before our outro. We're probably going to talk about AI a lot because it changes so many industries. It is insane. And we read all
we,
these
we might
articles.
as well call it just AI segment.
Hey,
I mean, and,
potentially,
and we would not have like, we would have an endless pool of topics to talk about.
for sure. Yep.
I mean,
Um,
now if we want to read an article, you don't have to read it anymore. Just copy paste ChatGPT. ChatGPT, please give me a summary of this. Thank you. And there
yeah.
you have it.
Yep.
5 sentences.
Yeah, it is actually crazy how much it also can boost your creativity in so many ways. It can help you go through these little plateaus that you have maybe when you're trying to create something or you're going through certain ideas. So it's really exciting to see, and the more everybody embraces the AI sector, uh, I think it's going to be interesting to see how it evolves every industry.
I was just talking yesterday with one guy that I met here in Canada through Robert. our previous guest. He's working something in construction work, so I think the panels that are holding the roof on the houses, something like that, and they have certain elements, certain parts that are going and holding it together, and they have a huge list of different parts and everything, and you had to know something about it, but that's not necessarily a skill or anything uh, that you just learn somewhere. They would have to kind of find a person, train it, and think that he will be good. Train it, and then give him the spreadsheets to go through them and just connect things and stuff like that. He said that he did that in an hour with ChatGPT. Like, he just you know exchanged the job right there on the spot for
Yep.
one person.
Yep. And there is an estimate that I believe 14. Let me just double check uh, what I read in an article, but there is about four.
14,000 jobs, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, 14,000 jobs that are gonna be uh, just deleted, basically, by the time 2027 hits, which is scary but also interesting because there are new jobs that are being created because of the development of AI. So the market is constantly moving and shifting and adjusting. Um, so it's going to be very interesting covering these news with you guys. And we hope that you find it interesting. If you have any suggestions or if you find something interesting news wise, please send it to us at fatherlylovepodcast@gmail.com. It would be really cool to see how AI is changing the universe.
Or yeah, or anything that pops your mind, or if you find something interesting and you think that we should be talking about, just give it a pop, and yeah, we'll explore it.
So that brings us to close to the end of this podcast.
Close. It is
Um,
close to close the podcast.
I Raiko might have forgotten, but he it was his task.
He
This
did not forget it. He did
Oh,
not forget.
oh! I think he's
Oh,
got something
oh,
for us.
oh, oh,
Oh,
oh.
oh! He's keeping us on our toes, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, because we are on a road to become very famous. Do you know
Yes.
how celebrities stay cool?
How?
They have many fans.
I think the goal should be to each episode have a stupider joke than the previous one.
Exactly.
That would be
Well,
amazing.
that is a very, very hard
Yeah, it's gonna be
you
a hard task
group of
considering we're trying to do dad jokes.
exactly.
um, but yeah, we hope you guys like this format. Um, what let's talk about before we wrap things up. We are going to talk about a fatherly advice. And Raiko, what would be something that you learned in this last week that you think is going to be beneficial to a father or a parent?
Well, very hard question because um throughout this, like, I would say that I've learned that in certain situations you really have to make certain sacrifices. So uh, I'm going through a very tough period now, being away from my family, and there's a lot of people who are always like, everybody asks me like, how are you dealing with it? So I just moved to Canada, and I'm just like, I have a pregnant wife with a small kid back home alone. I mean, she's with family. They're my parents, her mom and sister, and uh, it's just her friends, my friends. She has support, but I've learned that this decision to come here alone was very, very smart because we don't know the city. We didn't have an accommodation. We just had, like, I would have a job, she would not be able to work and stuff like that. So I just can't imagine how hard would it be to go and look for an accommodation with my whole family. So what, like, a lot of people back home told me, like, oh my god, how can you do it, you're leaving them alone, blah blah blah, da da da. But we sat down together and just made like an agreement as a family, and that was our decision, which I think it was very very smart of us to do. So uh, I would say that sometimes you gotta make tough choices, but if that is something that you believe is gonna be good for your family, uh, definitely go and do it if you know that it is a good thing. Because deep down, we're said to have three brains. Like you have a brain, you have your heart, and then you have your gut. So we better get and start listening to that gut feeling a little bit more.
Yeah, and they say that once you become a parent, your gut feeling is going to be everything, because the brain is going to try to brain, the heart is going to try to heart, but your gut is going to fight both and is going to be right. So listen to your gut, and it's probably helping you go through these tough periods, because I know for a fact he's my brother. I know how hard of a decision this was for him and for his family, but um, it is flourishing into something beautiful that I think once they're all in Canada, it's going to be even better.
Yeah. Yeah. Once when we get back to that old regime of not sleeping, now I can sleep, man. Yeah.
So that's a plot twist. He only went to Canada for a few weeks to get some sleep. He's gonna go back.
Exactly.
But with that, we hope you guys enjoyed. It is always fun having these conversations with my brother, learning how to be a better parent, learning about things that he learned about, researching for the podcast. It has been an absolute pleasure. It makes me happy. It makes me look forward to staying up late, which is not healthy.
Yeah, that's staying
But
up late for you, man.
yeah, but yeah, it is worth it, and it's going to be worth it. And
But listen,
when my baby's here, we're gonna record a podcast. There's gonna be baby screaming in the background, but that's gonna be the authentic fatherhood experience.
then you
It's
have
gonna
to
be
turn
great.
your noise cancellation in
No, no, no,
NVIDIA
no,
broadcast.
no, 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 no. Quite the opposite. Once the baby's here, I'm turning that shit off so people can see what parenthood is actually like. Um, but yeah,
It's not
messages.
hard at all. Don't listen to him. It's not hard. It's tough, but it's not hard.
It's all worth it. Trust. And that
Come
reminds
on.
me, another story we're gonna talk about in the next podcast is obviously going to be the parenthood burnout. But I also want to talk about an experience I had the other day with some friends that are thinking about having a child, and that's a very interesting topic.
Cool.
So let us know what you think. Send us your experiences, your suggestions, your interesting articles, anything that you think would make us giggle, cry, or be excited about something at fatherlylovepodcast@gmail.com. Uh, Raiko, any last few words?
Any last few words and support your local team in sports, whatever sports you watch, or I don't know, anything, just go local.
That's for people that don't know. We're from a third world country, and that's Cyrillic. It's for people that don't.
They will
uh,
learn. I'll learn them. Okay, we'll start a small, like, we'll have a little segment of 2 minutes. So every podcast, you will learn a new letter on Cyrillics.
there we go. For the listener that can't see this, that
I
can't
will
see the
convert all
video.
the world to write down Cyrillics. You'll see it. Just watch me.
Hey, they say you gotta dream big, and
Exactly.
this outro is getting pretty big and long. Um, we hope you guys enjoyed. Stay in touch with our on our
How
social
many
media.
times can you say that?
I don't know,
Hope you guys enjoy.
as many times as you interrupt me. Our social links are gonna be in the description down below. Um,
Because
also,
we're
make sure
socially
you check
linked.
us. We are never gonna end this podcast. I can already tell. He's in a good mood now. We're done. Um,
No, I just want you to, just wrap it up, man.
wrap it up. Okay, listen, guys. Five, four, three, two, one. Have a good night.